I'm really grateful that my chairman of my committee, Environment and Public Works, spoke so eloquently about the issues surrounding this bill. I'm new to the United States Senate, at least in Senate terms, because I've been here for about 2.5 years, but I've never seen such a broad-based coalition involved in supporting a bill. A coalition that extends from the far right to the far left, a coalition that brings industry and activists together, a coalition that brings environmentalists together, as well as those who seek to see economic growth. This is a tremendous coalition, but even more so for me as a relatively new senator. It's been one of the greatest privileges I've had in the Senate to work together in such a cooperative way to bring about legislation that you really could build such a broad base of support. I really do applaud my colleagues. I applaud the chairman and the ranking member. I applaud all the members on the EPW committee and others for working on a bill that really does earn, in my opinion, speaking as a man from New Jersey, that really does earn the right to have the name of my predecessor, Frank Lautenberg, on it. You know, Senator Lautenberg was a giant in New Jersey. He served this country with distinction. He was a veteran. He was a public servant. He actually ran a business and grew it to be a mighty one in my state and beyond. You cannot truly begin to appreciate the void that was left by him, but the great thing about it, that this champion of transportation, of infrastructure, of consumer safety, of fighting for his fellow citizens, that this champion's work, where he began working in partnership with Senator Vitter to try to move this forward and then sadly died, this is one of his great legacies. One of his great contributions was his effort to begin what has now been a multiple-year effort to reform the toxic hazardous chemical law. Senator Lautenberg's efforts really were the instigating factor, the ignition of this success that we're having today, of such a broad-based bill, of such broad-based support. It reflects his work, his efforts, and his legacy. And so I'm very proud that I had the honor, really, of finishing Senator Frank Lautenberg's term in the Senate last year. And during that time, and still today, I see on a daily basis the urgency around his efforts. I know that after Senator Lautenberg passed, his spirit was still very much manifest in this area when his wife, Bonnie Lautenberg, took up the important cause and served as one of the fiercest champions in strengthening this bill that we're talking about now. She was down here working, lobbying, nursing, pushing, cajoling, convincing, making sure that we got to this day. And so I'm very proud that during my 2.5 years, I was able to enter into the work to get this legislation to where we are today. I saw Senator Tom Udall and his leadership, and I want to praise that. And I've seen how tireless he was working on this, and I'm grateful for Senator Udall, Senator Vitter, Chairman Inhofe, everyone's staff as they worked together to get this bill to where we are today. At the beginning of 2015, my colleagues, Senator Whitehouse, Senator Merkley, and I began by negotiating this with Senators Udall and Vitter to make what we saw as urgently needed improvements to this bill. Working together, I'm proud that we were able to make those improvements to the preemption provisions that were involved in some of the things that my colleague from Kentucky were just talking about, making sure that states still had a role in the process, still had power and authority in this process, and in fact, had the ability now to co-enforce with the federal government around this bill. I was also very proud of a provision in this bill that will significantly minimize new animal testing and potentially save tens of thousands of animals from unnecessary suffering. I'm proud that the revised bill passed out of the EPW committee with strong bipartisan support again. And I'm proud that since the EPW committee has approved this bill, Senators Udall and Vitter have stayed at the negotiating table, continuing to take input from folks on both sides of the aisle, continuing to make this a better and better bill. In fact, Senators Merkley, Durbin, Boxer, the bill sponsors, and others have really done additional changes to make this bill strong. We would never have gotten this strong of a TSCA reform bill if it wasn't for the work of people on both sides of the political aisle, if it wasn't for the work of people within industry, if it wasn't for the work of advocacy groups, if it wasn't for the work of groups that I've come to respect a tremendous amount, like the Environmental Defense Fund, whose early engagement and constant pressure played such an important role. This is one of those rare moments where you have a full court press, both sides of the aisle, as well as individuals that are representing multiple sectors, all coming together to make a strong bill. Now, I tell you, they're making a strong bill because everyone was in agreement the legislation we had now, decades old, the TSCA bill, was broken. It was broken in that it did not protect consumer safety. It was broken that it did not give predictability and certainty to industry. It was broken because it put America's health at risk. Whether it's children or our seniors, it created an environment where people could get sick. It had no teeth, it had no strength. And so now we have a bill that when it becomes law, because I agree with Senator Inhofe, this is not a question of if. With this kind of bipartisan, bicameral support, when this bill comes law, it will protect American families. It will protect our children from dangerous chemicals and give industry certainty that it needs. So I urge my colleagues to pass the Frank Lautenberg bill today. I want to thank everyone again. This is a result of a tremendous coalition of efforts, a symphony of focus and work, of people coming together to do something that many people think is rare here in the United States Senate, that we all can work together across partisan lines to make good legislation. Mr. President, thank you, and I yield the floor.